Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery, and it is TJ, your host. Tonight will be a discussion, or a first part of a series of discussions, on another lovely book that I have read and found to be quite fascinating, especially in sifting and wading through the waters of Cluster B monsters. Well, which it will appear in the description below, but the book is called How to Spot a Dangerous Man Before You Get Involved. Now, first off, let's do a disclaimer. I happen to disagree with the fact that it's a female author and she's written this book for other women and is designed to tell them what to watch out for. Well, I hate to break it to you, Sandra L. Brown, M.A., the author, but there can be dangerous women as well. So I've chosen to call this particular series How to Spot a Dangerous Person. That's more like it. But otherwise, we can forgive her for that little piece. But the point of this book is she describes 8 different types of dangerous people, and she gives defense strategies and a red alert checklist for each. And she includes stories of successes and failures. Well, I'll just begin with the first part, and I'll just give us a brief overview. What she basically does is she gives you, as we stated, a list of 8 different types of dangerous men, but the important thing to realize is they're not like exclusive. So like if you read about personality number 1 and it fits your husband, spouse, partner to a T, but then you read the second chapter about a different one and think, oh, but wait, he's got that too. They're not all inclusive, which means, as she calls it, it's possible to have a combo pack person, which means she breaks them down in 8 categories, but you may see overlapping characteristics from one category bleed into another, which I understand what she's talking about, because different story for later, but I suppose it would do the author justice to begin with an introduction. She states, which again is Sandra L. Brown, M.A., she states, dangerous persons exist in all of our lives. As another person, I recognize that this is a factor that affects all persons. As a mother, I saw a dating future for my own daughters that was full of young, dangerous men. And as a psychotherapist who treated female victims of violent crime, I saw the women who kept picking these types of men. As a psychopathologist, I also saw the dangerous men themselves in therapy. It's what people do not understand about pathology that puts them at risk for choosing pathological individuals to date and marry. Therefore, my goal is to make pathology understandable for the layperson so that any woman or man can know when another person is dangerous and pathological. Wow, we can make diagnosis. Ha! Who needs a degree? I hope that focus will distinguish this book from others on violence, unhealthy relationships, and women and men's issues. Every chapter in the book, she claims, contains stories from one or more real-life people who got involved with dangerous persons And some of these stories come from my psychotherapy sessions, either with women or with dangerous men themselves. Exactly how many women these stories represent is hard to estimate. I've heard hundreds of stories in my 15 years of practice. Other stories in the book come from people I have known in my personal life, people she's watched engage in a dance of victimization with a dangerous man or women that they have dated, and by her women friends who had their own stories of dating dangerous people. So, what does Ms. Brown mean when she says dangerous? Well, for the sake of these series, we could easily switch the word dangerous with toxic. But she's claiming that what she means by a dangerous person is any person who causes damage to the partner's emotional, physical, financial, sexual, or spiritual health. The damage that can be inflicted by the partner is not limited to physical or sexual. People tend to overlook this truth about dangerous persons. They don't understand beyond violence what could make another person dangerous. She also states that throughout her book she uses the word dangerous loosely, interchangeably with the terms pathological and personality disordered, which again I say toxic or cluster B, same old thing, just a different way of saying it. But she says that she spent much time face to face with people suffering from severe disorders, and this is how she came to understand the field known as pathology. She did not even set out in her career to be a pathologist. It wasn't even a concept she believed in. She came from the optimistic branch of psychology and spiritual beliefs that valued self-help and the ability to transform one's life through growth and insight. And yet here she sat, year after year, staring into the faces of individuals who were incredibly dangerous and pathological, and also into the faces of the people who just kept picking them as dating or marriage partners over and over again. In those faces, there was a lesson for her to learn about psychopathology. This is one of my favorite chapters because I've encountered it in real life on so many occasions. It's basically a chapter about the cluster B, the covert narcissist. And the title is The Man with the Hidden Life, which we're translating to The Person with the Hidden Life. So, she says, just when you think you know your partner, I guess we'll have to use a man for this example, so you win, Sandra, but Hank the Hider reminds you that sometimes you don't know him like you really ought to. And it's not necessarily because you haven't tried. It's because you are not allowed to. So she states that Hank the Hider is, of all the different dangerous people, he's the one that leaves other partners feeling the most duped and fooled. A person can't handle if a partner is inappropriate for them if she or he doesn't know what he or she is really up to. You can't make an informed decision about him or her if you're not informed. These closet dwellers are tight-lipped. What you don't know can hurt you, and probably will. And these monsters understand this, which is why you are not privy to any information about the past life, current issues, or what may be planned in the future. These creatures come with complicated histories. There are no easy answers for why they behave the way that they do. Some are saddled with mental health issues that have caused them to develop a lifestyle of secrecy and lies. Others had difficult childhoods or parents who intentionally lived out of the sight of most people. Maybe this person had a parent who was a felon, a drug dealer, a prostitute, a whore. Maybe this person had a parent who was a successful business person who sheltered the wealth from the government's eyes. Whatever the situation, in many cases it was family members who taught this person how to keep most of their lives out of view. In other cases, these people's problematic behaviors are linked to addictions, sexual, relational, drug and or alcohol, gambling, or biggest of all, the addiction to thrill-seeking. That's a cluster B favorite. Whatever the history, though, the fact that this dangerous person developed into a pathological hider is what we need to be on guard against. People with hidden lives don't truly feel connected to people. Their attention is more engaged by excitement, adrenaline, and thrill-seeking other than by the love of a man or a woman. They desire the high of the moment, the chase, and the challenge of avoiding being caught by the police, by their mothers, or by you. Adrenaline is their mistress when you're not around, because a lot of their energy is absorbed in covering their tracks while actively seeking the next biggest thrill. These people with hidden lives can be involved in a lot of different activities, most of which you will not be aware of, and you would be shocked to find out about. I know. Others are engaged only in maybe one illegal or illicit immoral activity, and their activities may change frequently, perhaps to cover up past misconduct. Well, people who have dated these people with hidden lives tend to describe them as being aloof and distracted. And they're absolutely correct. There's just too much interesting stuff going on when you aren't there. These people's identities are not tied up in their relationships. Unlike another one from a different chapter, they're not trying to find themselves in you. They're trying to keep a lot of balls in the air while keeping you in the dark. It takes a lot of energy to have so much going on at once. And yes, these people love that, which many of us could never even consider doing, but whatever. Since she's describing illicit and illegal and dangerous behavior, she must be talking about society's deadbeats, right? Wrong. Not necessarily. People with hidden lives can be police officers, doctors, businessmen or women, or clergymen. The job that they do normally has nothing to do with what they're doing on the side. These people have an uncanny ability to compartmentalize their existences so that their professional lives and their hidden pathological lives seem to be unrelated. At least in their minds, because remember, they don't live in reality. Almost all of this guarantees that a person with a hidden life is a combo pack. Mental health issues, addictions, emotional unavailability, predatory instincts all combine to make them someone to be feared. His or her hide-and-seek games keep their partners clueless as to what he or she is really about. But that's what he's counting on, or she's counting on. He or she has the luxury of living a complete other life behind your or beyond your eyes and your knowledge. The world is an open playground for him or her. What's going on and with whom is only limited by his or her imagination and your lack of information. This monster feels very entitled to having the cake and eating it too. After all, It's really no one's business what he or she does personally. This is a common belief among these people with hidden lives. They really believe that their lives are their own and that they are free to do whatever they want as long as they don't do it in front of you. Rules, laws, society's expectations are frivolous to the hidden life person, even if this person works in the field of law or law enforcement. Lecturing such a person about social norms and conventions is about as meaningful as quoting statistics to him, which I've learned that one in real life. When it comes to any of the aspects of his or her life that he or she keeps in the closet, the rules just don't apply to him or her. Even the person's family members and closest friends don't always know what this dangerous person's up to. They can only allude to the secretiveness that's always been embraced. She or he's a private person, doesn't like other people in the business, has always kept to herself or himself. And there are probably reasons why this is true, reasons that you should know about, because Sandra Brown says a private life is usually a nice way of saying a closeted life. And she knows what kinds of things, or we know what are hidden in closets, like wives, other women, unclaimed children, men, addictions to drugs and other substances, criminal histories, second homes, aliases, sheltered debt, diseases, undisclosed bisexuality, psychiatric hospitalizations, transgender episodes, warrants for arrests, and criminal sex offenses. And that's just the beginning. So the next part is, who do these people seek? The number one enemy of these hidden life people would be an inquiring mind, followed by persistent questions and a lively intuition. So it stands to reason that the kind of person this dating disaster is interested in would be someone who does not inquire, doesn't question, or follow up. These people with hidden lives like others who are trusting and, most importantly, who want to continue that trust. Some people are invested in maintaining trust as a core value in their relationships with others, to the point that they're willing to look the other way to avoid seeing their trust violated. And she says that over and over in her research, many people she had indicated they were raised in homes where their mothers had stressed the importance of trusting people freely. So those who end up with men with hidden lives showed a pattern of not requiring that people prove their character and trustworthiness up front. Trust was just given openly and freely with no question. Violations of the trust were responded to with second, third, and more chances. This is exactly the type of person this dangerous creature wants. The little lady or man who equates a lack of trust with being impolite. Impolite is the worst thing you could call her. She doesn't even seem to think that ending up dead, raped, or injured is worse than being impolite. People who are distracted run a close second to the ones who are overly trusting when it comes to their appeal to these creatures, because the person may be distracted by an impending divorce, children who are acting out, a stressful career, an active life, their own outside interests, basically anything that will keep him or her from seeing, asking about, and following up on this secretive creature's inconsistencies and hunches. Also, people who are only seeking to date casually are good candidates for this clandestine lover. Those who date nonchalantly are not always in the habit of digging around for a lot of personal information. If the relationship deepens, he or she may then pursue that type of information, but in the meantime, they're happy to just have an occasional dinner out, a vacation together, a romp in the sack, all of which seems harmless and fun. Little do you know the risk that's being taken if this is you. And lastly, what these creatures are hiding influences who they date. Someone who's hiding the fact that he or she's married, for instance, may date a different kind of person than a person who's hiding drug dealing. Next, why are these people successful? Well, somebody with a hidden life can seem alluring in the beginning. Your lack of information about him or her may keep you intrigued. Even the unavailability can be exciting for some. This monster hopes that you will find something about him or her's tight-lipped demeanor attractive enough to keep you coming back. Been through that one. A hidden life person is not stupid. He or she knows what kinds of things push others' buttons and run them off, which is strong motivation for him or her to hide any unsavory behaviors. This monster probably learned to keep these pathological antics a secret because they've run people off in the past, previous partners. And this monster has learned from this track record that certain things need to be made public and other things need to be kept a secret. On the other hand, some of these hidden lifers don't know what the big deal is about what they do. They think they can compartmentalize their lives. They believe that if they're doing good over here in this occupation, well, that offsets the bad that they're doing over there, somewhere else. They see their lives as a scale. Goodness balances out mischievousness, and then all is well. These people are successful when they can find a partner who will also compartmentalize the behaviors. If this person's wealthy, famous, or handsome, some partners believe that offsets the being married or having a gambling problem or a sexually transmitted disease. Another reason these dangerous creatures are successful is because they're vague. They disguise their secret life by just saying, I'm a really intensely private person. And it may seem strong and dignified. If in the past you've dated people whose lack of boundaries caused them to disclose too much too soon, a little discretion on the part of this partner may be attractive to you. But if you look closer and listen better, you'll learn that when conflicting stories begin to emerge, it is always a marker pointing to your need to obtain more information. Maybe friends mention details about his or her life that you've never heard. Maybe family members allude to people from his past or her past that include names you've never heard of. Or maybe the careers don't line up with what's done today when you hear about past careers. That was in my past and I'm starting over now. To make matters worse, the person with the hidden life is usually a combo pack, and the nature of this character typically qualifies them for at least one other category in the dangerous person list. Most often, it's these people with mental health issues who lack any qualms about lying to others. Combo pack people are most destructive of all because, by definition, with them, you're never dealing with just one kind of dangerousness. Instead, their pathologies weave together to form a tricky and potentially harmful web. So next, she has some case study stories, which I will just paraphrase through because they probably resemble stories you and I have already gone through. But this particular character, which will remain nameless, was a nurse with 4 children, came across as extremely stable, soulful, insightful, compassionate. and patient when it comes to shortcomings in herself or others. She seems wise beyond her years, but still failed to avoid Buck. Buck was a charismatic chameleon who could be whatever she needed him to be. Distraught over her recently ended marriage, she needed a person she could confide in. On the scene, Buck arrived. A psychiatrist with his own long history of failed marriages. Although that should have been a red flag, for some people, this particular target welcomed him as someone she could easily talk to. To talk. And yes, this is a story that's mirrored my own. I've known this kind of person. But soon the two got married and blended their families. She had 4 children, he had 3. What a family of 9 they made. But Buck had a narcissistic streak. His psychiatric practice always came before this lady's nursing job and her recent return to school for an advanced degree. His constant need for recognition caused him to work extraordinarily long hours, and he was always trying for the position of the head psychiatrist at the hospital. Anything less than that was not good enough. Well, this poor lady worked diligently at her job as a student, in addition to taking care of the 7 children. Buck usually had meetings in the evenings, so the majority of the children's needs during the dinner fell on her hands. And Buck delivered lectures on the topics of marriage, relationships, addictions, and abuse. Even though he had several failed marriages in the past, he did not see any hypocrisy in this fact that he presented himself as a specialist in relationships, which I learned in college is pretty common. Just because you're a child therapist doesn't mean that you and your child's relationship is excellent, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, Buck had never been good with money. He had an impulsive nature which caused him to spend money in order to distract himself from his growing boredom. Psychopath. He was alternately bored with his home life, his marriage, his work, or himself. And actually his girl didn't have a real handle on what the boredom was all about, which, side note, I was involved with someone who used to always call me at work saying, "Come home, I'm bored," and I used to think, psychopath. But this lady didn't have a real handle on what the boredom was about, but she eventually discovered a few things about how he dealt with it. A few years into the marriage, she noticed that he drank too much. She learned that he had a history of drug abuse and had even been let go from previous jobs for inappropriately using drugs or alcohol with patients after they were out of the hospital. Buck's drug and alcohol usage was covert. And this poor lady noticed that it waxed and waned with his interest in his family. Then later she'd learned that he'd recently had an affair with a psychiatric intern. It turned out interns were always good targets for Buck because they were only around for a year or two and then long gone. This poor lady's discovery of the most recent affair turned out to be just the beginning of what turned out to be a Pandora's box. When she started looking more closely, she found among his belongings lists of numbers for phone sex services, locked boxes of pornography, sex gadgets, for whom, she wondered, and puzzling credit card charges. She began to pay attention to his unexplained absences at all hours of the day and night. I've been there too. And when she finally confronted Buck, he acted remorseful and confessed to a history of sexual addiction dating back to adolescence. He'd frequented adult movie theaters and engaged in unprotected sex. He had sex with strangers in public restrooms. He'd used pornography heavily and drugs and alcohol to drown his guilt. Had ongoing affairs and inappropriate relationships with patients. The list went on and on. Finally, this poor lady estimated that he had engaged in hundreds of acts of unprotected sex with transient people. Because of his behavior, she was incredibly high risk for contracting AIDS. Now, devastation doesn't begin to describe what this poor lady felt. Not only had her husband deeply betrayed her, but she was horrified and fearful for her health. Yet, she began marriage therapy with Buck. For several more years, she stayed with him. She worked on the marriage and couples counseling and went to therapy herself to heal the betrayal she felt. After a few years, Buck announced that all of his pathological acting out was in the past. That's the past. I've heard that one before, too. He and this lady should get... Oh, no. This is great. This is a great example of the cluster B. He told this poor lady that she needs to just get over it because he had, and he once again started to complain of mounting feelings of boredom. Poor Buck. To battle this round of boredom and to promote himself, Buck wrote a book that awarded him some attention within his field. But even this small amount of fame was not enough to squelch his growing discontent. He became involved with the transcriptionist who typed his book. Soon after the pain of trying to mend a marriage to a sex addict, this poor lady was told by Buck that he wanted a divorce. He had met another woman. Buck married this new woman. He also relocated to another state where his multiple marriages were unknown, and he opened a private practice. He eventually became divorced from his latest wife. Buck was able to get several women to marry him because he was good at hiding most of his pathological behaviors from them. Whenever he needed to, he was able to hold it together enough to present a front as a normal family man, like the movie The Stepfather, and a successful psychiatrist. But underneath these facades lay another life, one worthy of an acting award in the horror film genre.
I'm so glad I can finally pursue my desired career as a model.
Face it, I know that no one's beauty could ever match mine. Hey, honey! I love this song. Come dance with me. Hey! Hey! It's me! It's me! Hey, where you going? You don't want to dance with me? I realize I'm the prettiest one you've ever dated. But still,